better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you need a wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice.
Oh, who's this? Hey, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have is a very particular set of skills. General skills, investigation skills I've acquired over a very long career and background. Investigation skills that make me a nightmare for vampires like you. Now, Rob, if you let this system go, that'll be the end of it. I won't look for you. I won't pursue you. But if you don't, Rob, vampires, we're going to look for you. And I will find you, and I will make a cool story out of you.
The last thing that I, an evil spy vampire, want is John Taken coming after me. Is to be on the receiving end of that particular set of skills. Matt, I'm ready to come in from the cold. All right, I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready to talk about Knights Black Agents. Everyone,
yes.
This is Dungeon Master of None, and yeah, we're talking about a very special system.
I'm Matt. He's Rob. This is Knights Black Agents. So it's a 2012 role-playing game system by Kenneth Hite, using the GUMSHOE system by Robin D. Laws. And Knights Black Agents is a vampire vampire spy thriller.
Sorry, there's a lot to say about this, but at its core, this does one of the things that we have praised and suggested in the past, which is mash two things together. And what has it mashed together? It has mashed together a spy thriller and a vampire horror story, and that's such a good idea, Matt. I think
so good.
At its very the nugget at the center of this is just such an incredibly good idea.
It's so approachable, right? Everyone knows what a vampire is, or could be, and we'll get into that. Everyone knows what a spy movie is, if not actual spying work, which is stupid and boring and evil.
Incredibly dumb.
Spy movies are very cool.
Yes, spy movies and TV shows are cool. Real spy work is incredibly gross and awful.
So it's just such an approachable concept. Spies versus vampires. Coming now on Android and iPhone.
Yeah, I mean you hear it and you're like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Where better to fit a vampire story than in the dark, twisted alleys of a spy thriller, right? Vampires would make great spies, targets of spies, counter spies. Of course, it's a brilliant concept from which springs a interesting and complex game, Knights Black Agents.
Right. I don't know if we'll end up on wow, this game is incredibly a must buy and must play, but I have the feeling, and we'll save our final judgments until the end, that we'll end up, or at least I'll end up with, well, this is really interesting. This game is full of interesting suggestions and ideas, which is mostly why I want to talk about it. And I think speaking of what is in the game, it's a mashup of two fun things, spies and vampires, and it's also a mashup of two fun genres. It somewhere in the 250 pages of this rule book, it slips in, Knights Black Agents is a mystery inside a thriller. So mystery plus thriller. I think that's a great way to run a game.
That is. And this is such I agree with Matt. We'll see where we sort of land, but it is, I can say confidently, an extremely interesting system full of really good ideas. And there's at least a couple of straight up systems that you should borrow or can borrow and steal that we'll talk about. We've already mentioned the chase system in this in our chase episodes because it's so good, and I'd like to spend a little bit more time on it because it is so good. And there's a couple other things that it does really well. But it's so interesting, Matt. There's a lot of really good stuff coming out. People are still writing great books, maybe more than ever. But there's a certain quality to this that I don't know that we're going to get that much of in the future. I guess what I mean by this is, the reference in this is Knights Black Agents. It comes from Macbeth, Act 3, Scene 2.
Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, while Knights Black Agents to their prey do rouse.
Isn't that great? The thing is, people talk about this with science fiction and fantasy, but with like, most like TV and movies in general. The writers of like the 80s and 90s and early aughts, like the guys who were writing Simpsons and Star Trek, were all trained, all read up on Shakespeare and the classics and, various different genres, because that's all there was. There wasn't, you couldn't spend your whole life reading and watching science fiction because it didn't exist. Modern writers have a huge corpus of genre fiction to draw from. And so you don't see so many Night's Black Agents out there anymore, right? It's all, sorry, it's all Daggerheart and Draw Steel, which is nice. And those people are literary and those are good books that are well written. But like, you don't get the same, I guess, like classic quality that you do. The trade-off is that this is a very long and complex and in many ways unapproachable book. But I have a great appreciation for the level, the depth of knowledge that comes into this. There's a few bits later on, and they're constantly referencing like deep stuff from like spy fiction and from real life history of spycraft that is just kind of mind boggling to me. And I have a great appreciation for all of what they brought to this.
Everyone knows what a vampire is or has seen one spy movie. No one has ever seen more spy movies or read more spy books or vampire books than Kenneth Hite.
I think that is 100% true. Nobody knows more about
this. The entire text
this.
of this is just full of name drops of, if you read this 80s novel, this 60s novel, this film, yeah. And I mean, you'll recognize a lot of them, like, Ronin, 3 Days of the Condor, Mission Impossible. But then
Alias.
there are others that are like, oh, wow.
It's stuff but the references go deep. And you don't need to know any of that to appreciate this book. But like, if you do, it's there. And it's clear that this is coming from a very grounded understanding of the genre that it's working with.
Yeah. I want to save all my other like big takes on like putting this system together and would you actually want to run it until the end and talk about like some of the cool stuff in here.
Let's get into the nuts and bolts, the fangs and stakes, as it were.
Yes.
Wait.
The basic yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. There's a lot of jokes about raising the stakes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The basic idea is that your players are a group of spies in 2025, unlike 2012. We might call them like black ops operators, or something like that. that are probably like burned or disconnected from a larger organization, or maybe not. That have uncovered a vampire conspiracy. That like, hey, this is the real world. But what if like vampires were in charge of NATO or Deutsche Bank or something like that?
Yeah.
And or just maybe like a cool city like Chicago or Toledo. And then the players have to like uncover the mystery and alternate between discovery and action thriller as one feeds on another. So that's like the basic, like, hey, this is what we're working with. And then within that, you can decide what mode of spy, thriller, action, mystery you want. Burn, dust, mirror, or stages.
Mm-hmm. The sort of assumed structure of a Night's Black Agents campaign or adventure is specifically this: your spies or spy adjacent people who discover the vampires are real and that it is you sort of getting to the bottom of that conspiracy. So the cool thing about the different modes of play is this starts to get to when we talk about the complexity of Night's Black Agents is I appreciate this. I appreciate that they've given you different modes of play. It can get a little bit like messy to try to keep track of them, but basically you can play like a standard. Matt, am I right in saying like sort of like the default setting is like a James Bondy kind of thriller action spy movie, but you can also, if you want, play a le Carre novel or something a little bit more spy versus spy. They've got options for
right. The mirror
Yes.
mode. Yeah, so like, the mirror mode might be more like that with more betrayals and stuff like that. Burn focus was more on the player's like psychological stakes might be like, hey, more like Burn Notice or James Bond. I think the problem of what you're looking for is you're given these 4 axes of options, right? Imagine your little dumb libertarian like political quadrant of like, hey, which of these do you want to choose? And the answer of like, is there a default is no. There's no choice made for you. So you have to make the choice, which if that excites you as a DM to be like, I'm going to take a little bit of this and elements of that and add these in and then focus on these options, and it's going to be part stakes, part mirror, go at it. If you're like, just tell me what this game is supposed to be, then you might be a little disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with this is that, like, unless you know... I guess if you go in knowing what type of campaign you want to play, then you can pay attention to that. And they've done something that I want to like give them credit for. They've given you these different icons that tell you what, like, if each section applies to a specific style of play. The problem is that, like, without like a reference chart next to you, it was not easy for me to keep track of all of this and or intuitive. It's not a huge problem, and I think having the options is better than not, but it is complicated.
Speaking of options, I want to skip ahead in the book. On the reverse side, if you're deciding what is the genre, where's this game fall genre wise, and which options and mechanics do I want to use, there's also, in the nature of the threat, a huge build option for you as the DM. This is like kind of really cool in that on one hand, you get to build your antagonists almost like you're building a player character. But of course, your antagonists are vampires, and you get to decide what is the number of vampires, what is the source and nature of their powers. Can they be cured? Are they vulnerable to things? What powers and weaknesses do they have? And then you have like a whole list to build the head vampires, and then like their little minions, their Renfields.
Yeah, this is one of those sections that I think is worth reviewing as a GM, worth potentially borrowing or stealing, because it's fun. It's fun to use, and it's a really like neat tool, and I think well designed for building baddies and building a baddie organization. I think there's a lot to like about this, and I think I really like the way that they structure it.
I mean, this is super cool in that you can use it for repeat play, because each campaign of Knights Black Agents is not only like a mystery in the text of like, hey, where's the conspiracy? Where are the clues that are going to help me find the vampire stash house or safe house? But it's also a mystery in the mechanics and the like backstory of, oh, is Elizabeth Bathory the only vampire and we've got to kill her? Or Bathory, whatever her name is, right? She's going to be dead soon anyways once we investigate and find all of her minions. Or like, oh, are there vampires in every city and we got to take out their influence over human society? But also in the like mechanics, like, hey, are these vampires weak to garlic? We're going to find out as we slowly climb up we'll talk about the pyramids in a second. The mystery of this game.
Yes. Sorry, there's a funny bit in this section about vampire agents, and every now and then Kenneth will let his authorial voice drop and talk directly about it. But it's very funny that there are sort of like rules for playing as a vampire agent, but like it's clear that he doesn't. He literally says, "If it were up to me, nobody would ever get to play the good vampire ever again." Sadly, it's not up to me.
I mean, I would disagree. I would say it is sort of up to
that's
you.
What I was going to say.
Obviously, people can do whatever they want at your table, but you're writing the rule book, so
it feels like
in the rules.
This is from a time when everyone wanted to be Blade, and the
I
pressure
wanna
was
be
such that
played.
he felt the need to address it. But like, you can just say, sorry, the thing I want to say is, you as a GM can say no. You just say no. No one gets to be a vampire. You can say no about all kinds of things, and you should get in the habit of doing so.
Yeah. So, like, because this game is, there are plenty of games where you can play a vampire conflicted about their ideas and humanity. And this game is about, like, uncovering a conspiracy of evil vampires and destroying them. Like, it's very clear.
If you want that, just play Vampire the Masquerade. It's great for that. And then put spies in it. I don't know. It's fine. This is a different type of game.
Yeah. I really like this idea of, like, you can build the basics of your vampire antagonists and then build, like, hey, what is their the way they're operating within the campaign, which is kind of a separate thing. So should we talk about, okay, I think this is a great place to pause. And should we talk about what system are we working with here and why
we should talk about the system. Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the system. This uses the GUMSHOE system by Robin Laws.
And it's interesting because it is important, but the GUMSHOE system is technically so simple that we can and will talk about it, but it's all the stuff on top of it that makes Night's Black Agents what it is. But the GUMSHOE system itself is quite simple, quite very straightforward.
Yeah, I think the original GUMSHOE system is like 20 or 30 pages or something like that, and it's a great system. I can explain the entire thing right now. Your characters is a bundle of skills. Those skills have numbers. That number is a pool. You can spin points from that number to modify rolls. What are rolls, you ask? A D6. Target number between 2 and 8, default 4. If you beat it, you succeed in the check. If spending points from the pool adds a bonus to your die roll. The cool part of the GUMSHOE system is that by default, if you have a skill in a fancy investigation skill like forensics or digital intrusion, you automatically get clues associated with that. Who gets the clues? Whoever has the highest in skills, which means the GM of the GUMSHOE system needs a sheet with everyone's like total summary. And then for investigations, there's never a question whether you find the clue. You just give them the clue. The files show a connection to Deutsche Bank. However, if you want to spin points from your pool on investigation, aka when you're not rolling, they just give you more clues or more details about the clues. The brilliant idea of the GUMSHOE system is that the fun part of the mystery is connecting the clues, not finding the clues.
It's really, Matt described it, it's really very simple. Everything is a D6. You have a pool of points to spend. A lot of the fun and challenge as a player is budgeting and spending those points, figuring out how you want to spend them, how many you want to keep in reserve. There's some fun and interesting stuff around how to get them back and restore them, but it's really it's a game.
It's mostly like, hey, the story beat calls for your clues to be refreshed. And
right.
That you as the dungeon master can tell, have they spent all their points on their investigation skills? That should mean they've got all the clues they need. If they don't, I fucked up.
Right. Well, and there's investigative skills, which work how like Matt described, and that's neat, right? They just automatically succeed and you get extra stuff. And then there's general skills, which
streetwise, high society, forensic pathology, cryptography, infiltration. Yeah, these are pharmacy. There's so many, criminology, art history, architecture.
But like your general skills are things like driving and shooting and athletics. And these are a little bit, harder to restore and don't automatically succeed. And it's balancing the two, which I think makes the game interesting. But the fun part is the core GUMSHOE bit, like Matt described, is you just get clues for using your investigations, and you can spend points to get more and better clues. It's good, it's fun, and as in contrast to a lot of the mysteries that we talk about, it's really 100% about putting it all together, because you have more than enough information. You have too much information as opposed to a standard mystery where you're working with limited sets of clues.
Right. Nothing, the fun part, the thing that is player skill as opposed to like character skill is just like, hey, we discuss as players, what do these clues mean and where do they point us to next? The sort of divide between general skills, making a roll for action where there's a chance to fail, and investigation, which assumes your character, even if they don't even have a point in the skill, is already competent. If they have 1 point in the skill, they are an expert. If they have 3, they're like the region or world renowned at that skill. And so, yeah, of course they're going to find those files, right? Of course they're going to notice the blood stains or be able to analyze it. This is really great. It removes the bottleneck of the mystery. Just like, hey, you've got points, and by the way, if you want more info than what I just gave you, just spin those points. Spin them right now.
This does another good thing that I increasingly like, which is that if you're good at something, if you're a badass spy agent, you just do it. You just, especially when it comes to the investigation, if you have these skills, you just do it. You do the thing, right? You don't have to roll for it. You don't have a chance of failure. There can be complications, and it doesn't automatically make you succeed. But I greatly prefer this in games where you are supposed to be globe-trotting badass type, where you can just do things.
There are 2 other things we should note about the way the GUMSHOE system is added to Night's Black Agents, is that Night's Black Agents adds, 50, 100 pages. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
I spaced out a little bit while reading it, for like vehicles, spy tech, special weapons, combat, to add that like thriller to the GUMSHOE system. And it also means that there's, God, I haven't even counted, there's like over like 40 skills, which now I will say, on the one hand, if your player has 4 points in flirting, that's just telling you as the GM, anytime they want information, they're like, no, I go to the NATO commanders party in Brussels and flirt with all of the generals and their generals' wives, and then what clues do I find? Oh, perfect. Yeah, you can use anything to find out about anything, is the way I think this is supposed to be run. On the other hand, it does mean that all of your characters have 40 skills, which is ridiculous.
I guess the good thing is that the way the system works and the way that it's written is that it's hard to I guess like make a character that's too weak. Like even if you spread your skills out,
it's impossible.
There's benefits. Even if you have just like a couple points in any given skill, it's still useful. It's still beneficial. So you won't be useless, but you got to figure out where to put those 40 points. There's just a lot of skills, a lot of points, a lot of things to decide on.
I think the coolest things that like point to the way these types of games design was going when this was published and is going now are skills like network contacts and preparedness, where it's just like, I think the author Kenneth Hite gives this example for preparedness. Well, I'm going to use my preparedness points, and guess what I have brought to this fight? It was a Stinger missile to shoot down the helicopter. That was the escape vehicle for the vampire, right? It's just showing I was prepared. I knew that there was going to be a helicopter. Or network contacts. Oh, hey, I do have a contact that can get us the information that we need or to guide us to where we go. Perfect. I haven't written down who they are. We're going to make them up right now and play that out. Awesome.
Very similar mechanism. In Blades in the Dark. It's mechanically structured a little bit different, but this is a great part of these types of films and TV shows, books, is the spy reveals that he's prepared for precisely this moment, and has something set up. There's so many like cool mechanical bits in this game like that allow you to do neat things. This runs into a problem. I don't know. It makes me think of Shadowrun, where there's a lot of stuff that's mechanically explained and accounted for that you simply just don't. You just don't have to. It's not there's it's not necessary. One thing that sort of like springs to mind is there's a gigantic sidebar on tasers and stun guns in the like weapons and equipment section, and like the sort of like ultimate conclusion is like they don't work on vampires, which is okay, but it's just like it's a weird digression. The book needed an editor at many points.
I believe. Rob, I believe it has one.
Sorry. When I say things like the book needed an editor, what I mean is it needs like a better editor.
Or it had a publisher. I'm sorry.
Apologies.
Maybe it didn't have one.
Yeah.
Okay, no one is listed as editor, just as publisher.
Aha,
but yeah,
aha.
do we need? You were right, Rob. Do we need like a table for the speed modifier and maneuver modifier of all vehicles, or 2 sentences for each of those, just explaining what the modifier does? You know, it's adding. I think the author rightly. We'll talk about this when we get to the advice on structuring adventures. Knows that it is super fun to investigate a mystery, and what does that mystery lead you to? Not just like, haha, you're the vampire, but no, we know where the vampires like thralls are, have like a currency smuggling den in the seedier parts of Budapest, and we're gonna blow it up. Now that we've figured this out. And so like our reward for finding information is we put ourselves in danger to either achieve something or get that next bit of like information that moves us up or down deeper into the vampire conspiracies. Like that's a really fun loop.
Yeah.
But in order to make that loop happen, this book has added 100 pages of Shadowrun, GURPS, basic role-playing rules for all of the cool combat things you need.
Yeah.
When it also has like rules for being like, well, what if your character is just like assumed to have these things and you roll a check to see if you have them? Right. Or like, how does this generally work?
Like this is not, I like, even in a non-tactical game, I like a little bit of crunchy combat, and I love crunchy, dense descriptions of military hardware. I'm a nerd like everybody else, but there's a way to do that doesn't require you to list every single thing that you could conceivably purchase.
Well, you can't purchase things. You can roll a check to see if you can acquire them, but normally you're assumed to be able to have them. Yeah.
There's like a paragraph on a hairspray and a lighter. Like, that's cool, but like, I don't know, like
it does seem like this would be a thing you could just rule on the fly. That's cool. It works.
That's exactly what I'm just like, I feel like you can just make that ruling on the go. But yeah.
Let me move to something that does work in that like contemporary design that I do think is really cool, which is on page 107. Rob, how do you feel about TFFBs or TFFBs? Tactical fact-finding benefits. What are tactical finding benefits, listeners, you ask? Well, they're whatever you want them to be, but they're a cool idea.
I also liked TFFBs, Matt. I thought the TFFBs is a pretty cool bit.
This is one of those things that we're like, this is a brilliant bit of design that's amalgamated from many other sources and has a little new spin that was published in this book that is great for many, many different types of games and systems. The idea is that as your players are gaining clues or investigating, you should give them some kind of benefit in the form of a meta currency that they can spend during the thriller part of this mystery thriller, give them some of their pools back, or adjust difficulties. Where it sort of falls apart is it's like, well, tactical fact-finding benefits could be any of these things, and they could grant you any of these things. And I think that works great if, hey, this is like my game and this is the house rule I'm running, but it'd be nice to just be like, here, just do this. This is the one that's easiest. These other ones are other options. But it's like, hey, this is how I run it. This is how you should think about it too, which on the other hand, I do kind of appreciate. A lot of the advice in this book is clearly, hey, I think I know how Kenneth Hite runs a game. I think it's awesome. I think
you get a really good sense for how Kenneth Hite runs his games, and it sounds like a blast.
Sometimes if I use the art history skill to discover where the secret entrances are, that means when we get to the heist, Kenneth is just going to tell me where they are on the map. Sometimes he's going to give me some points back. Other times it'll mean that we'll emerge on a drop on the people. Like, all of those are cool options, but then to design that into the rule book can be a little cumbersome when you're trying to understand how to use them.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that didn't need to be codified necessarily, but it's kind of cool that he did. There's some interesting stuff. It's just this is a long book with a lot of things in it.
Well, back to the cool stuff to steal. I think the way you can use tactical fact-finding benefits or tag team tactical benefits is just, hey, at your table, look through this list and codify the one that you want to use for your players in whatever your system is, because most systems have a luck point or a team pool or a hit point refresh, or it could be completely meta, like, hey, y'all have accrued 5 of these benefits for this heist. I was going to start you here with this information. Instead, I'm looking at my chart. This is the meme range. You're going to get this additional information, and you can start at any of these 3 locations, which means you're going to have advantage in the combat.
This is a feeling that I get about a lot of this book. Is I love so much that's in here, and if I were going to go through, if I'm going to use it, or if I'm going to change anything about it, I would just scale it back a little bit, remove some things, because most of the core ideas I think are pretty darn good. It's just a lot of the stuff that's tacked on makes it kind of hard to get at the core ideas and systems.
Well, speaking of systems, we were talking about the GUMSHOE system and its implementation in this game. I wanted to highlight 2 things that I think one is new, and one is something that I think 95% of DMs I've encountered, I've played under, have actually done without thinking about it, and it's a good thing to do, right? So we said GUMSHOE is a skill-based system, but the skills that relate to investigation don't have a failure, right?
Yep.
How does that work? Gathering clue, to quote from the rules, gathering clues is simple. All you have to do is get yourself into a scene where relevant information can be gathered, have the right, skill or ability to discover the clue, and tell the director that you're using this. As long as you do these three things, you will never fail to gain a necessary piece of information. It's never dependent on a die roll. If you ask for it, you will get it. This is, I think, something that most DMs do occasionally, right? Do you have the athletic skill? Yeah, you make it across this thing, right? Oh, do you have diplomacy? You know who to talk to.
This is one of my favorite things about the system, and it's something that I think is I would like to see more of in all kinds of games, because I don't know, failing isn't fun, especially for things that you're supposed to be good at. And I guess the cool thing here is that there's still an RPG element. It's just spending your resources to get more. You're never going to fail to gather some of the information if you're trained in it.
Let me quote something about a second part of the GUMSHOE mechanics, which is spins, right? Your skills are also, they don't give you anything other than, the basic gathering clues that you get for having the skill until you spin them to add to the roll or for additional information. Quote, spins. The mechanical role of investigation pool points is to manage spotlight time, and as a method for the players and the keeper, that's the game master, to signal, quote, oncoming coolness, unquote, to each other. A player who says, can I spend a bureaucracy point here? is requesting something cool for his agent to do or discover during the scene. When the director says, "Do you want to spend an art history point here?" she's signaling that there's something awesome available during the scene that she thinks the player or players would enjoy. The repartee will eventually become nearly seamless and automatic.
Another sort of like forward-thinking thing about Night's Black Agents is that it communicates in sort of like the language of scenes and spotlights and who's got, you might say, the director's chair very well. And it's immediately obvious to me how you're going to tell like a cool, fun spy thriller with the system as written. And that's what it's designed to do. And I think that part works really well.
Now, I think this is useful for all systems, even ones that don't have this like spin or pool mechanic, right? If a player asks you, "Can I roll a bureaucracy check here?" And you're like, "No, what were you doing? You haven't done anything yet." What they're really asking you to do is like, I want to use this aspect of my character to tell a scene that's going to do something, accomplish something, get our side some information or advantage or leverage. And then instead of saying, "Well, no, what are you doing? There's no bureaucracy here," say, "No, but should we start a scene where you've approached the imperial magistrate and you're going to talk to them, or head over to the records department at Tarrant County Courthouse?" Sure. Okay, let's do that, right? Let's start that scene. And then, if your system calls for it, you'll make a check once you've done it, because we know you're good at that.
That's exactly right. And the thing to take away from this is to remember that when your players are asking that, even if they're asking something that's like, if you're like, "Why are you asking if you can do something in this moment because it's not relevant?" They want to do something cool. Sometimes it's not appropriate to the scene or whatever, but like as often as you can, you want to say sure and figure out what they're trying to do. And sometimes that does require a roll. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I increasingly often, if like they're trained in it, they can do it. I'm like, yeah, you do the cool thing, because why not?
The last mechanical thing I want to advise comes from the GM section, which is something, again, I've noticed players in all systems do, which is the fail-safe test. In the cinematic mode, you set a difficulty of the test at 2. By the way, it's almost impossible to fail a 2 test. You only fail it if you haven't spent anything 1 out of 6 times. And if you spend any points at all, a player will automatically seed. The director can either provide a plausible excuse for the ease of the test or just let the players believe they got lucky. If the agent doesn't spend at all, either because they're at point hoarding or point dearth, the agent still succeeds, but trips an alarm, gains heat, or otherwise increases the risk of danger after getting a clue. It's just saying, hey, sometimes you need a test for drama's sake and player interest's sake.
Yeah.
What should you set the failure condition to be? Well, it's not that they don't get across the chasm or drive their cool spy car to the spy place. It's that other things happen. They gain fallout, they gain heat, or danger somehow increases. This is, I think, really forward-thinking advice from a book in 2012.
Well, and this contradicts, or this might seem to contradict some advice that we've given or is sometimes given, which is don't make players roll for no reason.
If there's no chance to fail.
But increasing tension can be a reason. That can be a reason to have a check. That can be a reason to make players make a dice roll, is to even if they can't technically fail or are very unlikely to, just raising the stakes can be a good reason,
right,
contextually.
And then, you can either keep this to yourself, or my preferred method is to tell them, okay, yeah, you were, it seems unlikely that you're going to fail, but failure might mean that this other thing happens, right? That the other tension of this scene or this part of the adventure arc is going to increase.
Yeah.
Any other notes or thoughts on the gumshoe system as presented here in Night's Black Agents?
No, it's at its core, it's a really simple, fun system to me.
And at
it's
its
still
edges, it's not.
It's still fun in Night's Black Agents, but a lot of the stuff that has been tacked on makes it a little. God, you would think that like the fact that you just roll a d6 and add pools would mean that this is always simple, but no, unfortunately, you can't actually make it quite complicated. You can make rolling a d6 very, very complicated, but at its core, it's pretty cool.
Let's talk about the setting, which is the coolest thing about this game, which is that the setting is your campaign plan and structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
The setting is like there's spies and powerful government agents and vampires, and like that's it. And then everything else is just like information for building that. Let me give us a quote from the rule text to get us started, right? Talking about like the goals of a campaign or something, what it should look like. Throughout a typical Night's Black Agent campaign, the agents uncover the extent of a vampire experience, mapping its branches and personnel, survive attacks by the vampires or their minions and pawns, discover the vampire's weaknesses and true nature, detect or prevent ongoing and ad hoc vampire or conspiratorial operations, weaken the vampire conspiracy by striking at its main branches or key personnel, finally, destroy the vampires at the heart of the conspiracy.
It's great. One of the things that this does really well is we talked about this in the context of like a heist game. People know how to play a heist game because everybody's seen a heist movie. Everyone's seen at least one. People generally know how to play a D&D campaign because they know how dungeon crawling works, right? If you have sort of like the narrative vernacular to understand this, then it's easy to pick up. And this is happening in Night's Black Agents because everybody understands spy stuff. Generally, everyone's seen probably like one spy movie or has at least absorbed sort of like the idea behind it. So if you're like, there's a grand criminal conspiracy or international conspiracy of vampires, they're going to know what to do, or they're going to vaguely understand the assignment, right? And then you can just sort of like plop them in the setting and have them just go at your conspiracy and work on solving it.
I also love this in that it like builds not like a world or a setting, but like a campaign, right? Like This campaign has an end. You will build the core of the vampire leadership, and the goal, right? Like, hey, how long are we continuing to play this campaign? Are we still going to do it for another year or two or another month? No, we're going to play this campaign until you take out the core of the...
When you get to the vampire elders, it's over. So,
right. Yeah, that's the campaign. If we want to continue to play Night's Black Agents, we're drawing up new kinds of vampires. These ones are aliens, and they're psychic or something, and invisible. Actually, they're just little gray, and they're little gray men.
They're somehow
would work
even worse
for this thing. So to build, now we get into something very conspiracy oriented. We're building pyramids, Rod.
That's
Rod.
right. That's right.
Where are we tiling rasters for digital? No. These pyramids are two types. There's the conspiramid, and there's the vampiramid.
Which you didn't have to name them that, but it's a good way to think about them. It's helpful.
Yeah. The conspiramid is your story map, right? It is the if the agents, what if the heroes never did anything? Here is what's going on in the world that is getting worse and continuing, right? These vampire elders control organized crime all over Eastern Europe and are expanding into Lisbon. Perfect. And then you build it from its leadership to its supernatural level, natural, provincial, city, and neighborhood.
Supranational. Above the nation. Sorry.
There's
just wanted to make sure that we're
and supranational.
Supernatural and supranational.
Then,
Ghost NATO.
we connect
That's-
all these.
Yeah. Vampire NATO.
We connect all these like cells, like who gets information, reports to what, who controls what, and make some connections kind of across, always up a level, but also across levels, so that players can kind of bounce around and get clues that lead them to each other. And one adventure, right, might be taking down one of those cells. So early in the campaign, it's dealing with an archaeologist that's, connected to some, vampires that are, maybe he's unwittingly pulling up artifacts that they need for their demonic rituals. Or at the mid-level, right, it's defeating a supernatural but provincial vampire like agent, like a Dampier or something like that, or breaking up the smuggling ring. And at the highest level, it's destroying their blood cult or finally staking the vampire elder.
I love this as this reflects a lot of like how I do campaign prep. Just the way that I think, I tend to do like flowcharts of like organizations and people. And I could do this 100 times and not get bored. Like, this doesn't build a campaign by itself, but the way that I think this would give me so much more to work with than drawing a map or writing out like a linear campaign. Having all of these different connected people and organizations immediately makes sense to me and is a great way to design a campaign. You can start by presenting your players with information about the people at the bottom, and as they progress through the ranks, they learn more and more, and you can see the connections. And this is a great way to think about designing. Obviously, it only works for certain types of campaigns, but it's a great way to look at it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. It's, I think, a great example to read if you've never, and again, obviously this works better in some genres than others, but a lot of this is pretty universal, right? If you've got a bad guy that has some mystery about them, right, that the players can slowly uncover, build yourself a conspiramid, right? And now this one says you've got to, work through blood, protection, and money, the three things that vampires need. Obviously, in your campaign, it might be different things that are flowing between these nodes. Those are pretty specific to vampires. But it's just great advice for building your antagonist that is rich and repetitive, as in the players are coming back to them again, and the players still feel like they're accomplishing something. I love the conspiramid.
Yeah, I'm big fan of the conspiramid. Yeah.
And of course, hand in hand with any good conspiramid goes the vampiramid. So the vampiramid is, and I will quote here, the vampiramid provides a dramatic response algorithm for the vampires, guiding their reactions to the agent's assault on their security and their plans. It creates a more natural-seeming story than just a storm of attacks or weird stuff, right? It helps drive the narrative along an organic arc, providing story momentum in between the agent's active plans. It personalizes attacks on the agents, etc., etc.
Yeah, I like this a lot as well. This type of thing just fits the way that I run campaigns a lot better, because you're building a enemy with needs and wants and desires and behaviors, and then you are intelligence, right? And you are trying to model their response to the agent's actions rather than having them be sort of like a static enemy for the players to go at, or designing a precise structured narrative for them to follow. I greatly prefer this type of thing. You give yourself enough information, you write up enough so that you understand the vampiramid, and then you know how they will act given circumstances at hand.
Yeah. And like the Conspiramid, the Vampiramid, of course, has levels. It starts with Reflex, kind of just, hey, this is how this evil organization of vampires reacts when first threatened. And then it moves up to Containment, Deflection, Embrace, Entrapment, and Destruction.
The thing for me is this feels, I think it depends on like what you prefer as a GM, but to me, this feels easier to wrap my head around and to run than a lot of different types of systems. Like it immediately sort of falls into place how to progress the game, right? How to advance through the Conspiramid and the Vampiramid and to continue to escalate threats as the players investigate.
Yeah. It's, I think, also like this as a outline, a template that you can go back to for your villains or antagonists in any game is super useful, right? Like, how are they going to react when they don't really know who the players are, right? It's these each row, by the way, like row 1 Reflex, right, has suggested actions. I think in a more contemporary system, these would be like DM moves that you throw at your players, and they're fun things like they Yojimbo you, right?
Right.
Hire an unaffiliated attacker, a contract killer, the cops. They pay off someone else. They plant some evidence, right? And then as, of course, the players destroy more of the vampire conspiracy, these attacks become more dangerous and more personal. They're like, hey, just, okay, you've made it to level 3. Just we're going to just try and buy you off and make you join us. We're going to offer you immortality. We're going to promise a cure for your grandmother's, dementia.
This also like models a spy thriller really well, right? Like, it'll start with like low level stuff, and then as you become more dangerous, as the enemy becomes more aware, like it gets more serious. They go after your family. They try to, take out things that are important to you. They just like kill an agent. It's a really good model to follow. I feel like, I haven't put this into practice obviously, but I feel like Night's Black agents would reward prep really well. Like if you have all the information, if you've modeled all these things out, unlike other games, that is going to pay off for you because it's going to make it easier for you to respond dramatically and naturally to agents' actions without having to do a bunch of, like, you can do so much at the beginning and then just sort of like let things fall into place. I get the appeal if you are the type of person who, and I am this type of person, would love to write out like factions and characters and all of their like various connections and behaviors and resources, and then just let players bounce off of that.
It is, I think, from beginning to end, a system that rewards GM prep, right? When you get to the first couple pages, it's like, do you want to play this game? Well, first you need to prepare and study and decide what type of game you want to play.
Yeah.
And I think that's appealing to a lot of people. And the bonus is, if you're like me, I'm like, I don't know if I want to prepare that much. The tools for doing the prep, like the Conspiramid or the Vampiramid, are like super useful frameworks to think about doing your prep in an efficient way.
I mean, if you are somebody who has mainlined every piece of spy fiction from the last 50 years and just has an encyclopedic knowledge of vampire lore, you probably don't need to prep at all. You're probably great at running this game. You're probably Kenneth, what's his name? Sorry, I forgot his last name.
Kenneth Hite.
Kenneth Hite. But for the rest of us mortals, you will have to prep. But I do find that appealing. I do find this appealing. I'm like, this is interesting. This would be fun to run. I would like to write out a vampire conspiracy and a bunch of vampire agents and factions, and then throw my players at them. That would be cool.
Right. I think
the thing is, though, it doesn't.
Game that.
Well, it's not like. I think there's an attempt at this, but it's not like something that you can be given like a like a pre-made adventure for. Like even though they give you lots of tools and I think make it pretty easy, you will have to do a fair amount of work yourself.
Yeah. Like 2 examples, right? The starting pre-made adventure for this is incredibly complicated and quite long.
Very complicated.
I don't think it does a good job of. It does a great job of, in a thrilling way, introducing a vampire conspiracy. I don't think it does a great job of teaching players, like, hey, this is how you should, because it flips the assumed structure on its head by starting with thriller, which, again, may be a good decision for the opening thing. But then, like, the investigation, because of that, is, like, very muddled and weird. It is a long and difficult read to, like, figure out how to run it. And I think another point to support Rob's argument about this is a game for insane amount of preps, but very rewarding if you can do it. The basic idea of an adventure spine and skeleton is of which the core clues that point the players in the right direction down the spine are the things they're always going to find. And then upon that, you hang the skeleton of the hook, the curtain, the wake up, the stall, the first reveal, the blowback, the twist, the relief, the final reveal, the setup, the final confrontation. I was like, wait a second, this isn't the structure for the whole campaign. No, this is like one adventure. The assumption here is that this is one node in how you deal with one node in your conspiramid. And, considering that even if you went straight up the conspiramid, which your players logically almost certainly won't, there's no way you can run an adventure that has this many scenes in what I consider a typical night session. Like, every adventure is 2 to 3 scenes. And if this was a and I guess maybe we should get to, there's some other things we didn't talk about, like heat mechanics or
there's so many things we didn't talk about.
There's so many cool stuff here that we didn't get to. The alternate ways, like what if your agents were psychics? That appeals to me. Psychics versus vampires. But we should get to some final thoughts here, which is if those are the 10 steps for a single adventure, every adventure is going to be like several sessions long. And unlike maybe more contemporary game designs, which would be like, players are building, or the GM is building this cool conspiramid, every session is going to follow like this perfect, ideally, and obviously some of them will mess up, arc where we deal with one node in the conspiramid, and then we get pointed to 2 other nodes, and then next we choose which one to go to for the next time. But it's not that contemporary game. It's a game from 13 years ago.
I would say, and this is not necessarily a criticism, but like some other games that are similar, this feels like somebody's forever game. That this feels like this is what they want to play or want to run all the time forever. And they have invested an immense amount of effort and resources and, intellectual ability on the details to doing that. Because to run this as written, the investment that you have to make in terms of like knowledge and preparation is immense. And I'll admit I find it interesting. There's a part of me that would love to run a short Night's Black Agents campaign. I would love to build a conspiramid and a vampiramid and see what happens. Practically, I am daunted by the prospect of like trying to run it and like getting the rules right. And so the part that I would love to keep is a lot of the structure and the story, and maybe just like run it in a different system, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I approach this with the attitude of I'm never going to run Night's Black Agents, but I
always have this dumb idea. I never will, but I'm always like, I could do that because I'm an idiot.
Maybe because I came with that attitude, I'm like, there is so much fascinating advice and interesting ideas for prepping mysteries and thrillers. Like for me, the idea of putting the mystery and thriller together, right? This flow, even proactive thriller players tend to go not from clue to clue along a trail, but after targeted foes in a series of limited scope investigation. Where's their headquarters? Where's their weak spot? And then assault using intel from those investigations. The idea of like, well, I love mystery games, but just doing a mystery over and over again is kind of boring. Well, what if the mystery pointed you to a thriller and the thriller pointed you to the next mystery? Like, that's super great. And this book is full of advice on how to do that. I think my like ultimate, well, okay, I have two big closing thoughts that I want to run by you, Rob, which is I kind of agree with, hey, instead of designing this as a system that does one thing really well and shows you how to do this, it does have that like forever game mentality that I think is a holdover from earlier game design. That like, hey, because I want you to feel free to do anything with this, I've given you a million options for how to design vampires, how to design the genre, how to design character create. There are like several options as you can pick for how to let your players make characters, how to do some of the mechanics. And so that this game can be anything with spies and vampires or even other supernatural creatures. And so that gets in a way in a big stumbling block for making it easy to prep and then get from reading this book to running the game. Because you have a million decisions to make as a GM.
I know this is not popular for lots of reasons and that it's complicated, but like a bunch of the stuff, like the different modes of play, a lot of the additional options, if they must exist, I really feel like ought to be like a supplement or an addendum. Like I would like, for so many things, but for this I would like a tight like core book that really like has the essence of Night's Black Agents in it, because that's really, really good. And I don't want to like discourage all the like extra fiddly stuff, because that's also really good. I just don't know that they all need to be in the same book.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I feel like if this game came out in 2022 instead of 2012, or was written by a team that was one generation of game designers later.
Yeah.
Now, would it make it a better game? No, it would just make it different. It would make it more appealing to me and less appealing to other people. It's neither good nor bad, but I feel like it would have like this like perfect flow that is in there, but it's hidden under the options for like, hey, actually, all you have to do as a GM is pick one thing from this list of 5 things, one thing from this list of 5 things, and here are the 5 things you do in response at level 1 of the pyramid. Here are the 5 things you can do in response at level 2. Like these kind of more modern apocalypse world forged in the dark game designs, which again would make it less appealing to some people, but would make it a heck of a lot more appealing to me. And I think the reason for that is it would be easier to run as a GM.
And I guess that's sort of like what I'm driving at, because like what we're wrapping up now, and I can't in good conscience recommend this to anyone unless you are absolutely in love with this very specific idea of spies versus vampires, or you're just a dilettante like me and you like to like steal ideas from as many books as possible. If you're curious, if you like to read it, it is a really interesting, well-written book with a lot of neat ideas. We didn't actually come back around to the chases, but like I think the chase rules are some of the like the coolest and best I've ever read, and you should steal them. Like Matt mentioned, the TFFBs are cool. There's all sorts of like neat little subsystems. So it's not a bad book, but like if we are giving advice to GMs, I can't be like, you should read this book, because there's other things you should read or other things that you should look into instead. So that's like why I was thinking if this were going to be rewritten, or if you were going to do a Night's Black Agents 2.0 or something, that I would love to see the core idea boiled down into a tight sub 100 pages book.
Right.
And then have a bunch of like DLCs, addendums, supplements, or whatever. Put all that other stuff back in, but like let people buy like a nice, simple hardcover that tells because the core stuff, like we mentioned, is really quite simple theoretically.
Well, two things. I agree with you that, this, I think, is a system of its time. It lacks the finesse and definition of contemporary, what Rob and I would consider well-designed indie games. But, right, because it's trying to do so much and include so many things, it's almost like, to me, more appealing if you don't want to run it. So
that's a good point.
Is that this is a incredibly strong recommendation, not to play. Play it if you think it's cool. Awesome. Great. But it's an incredibly strong recommendation to read this book if you're interested in designing conspiracies and mysteries for your own campaign prep, or are interested in the submatter, or are interested in the like history and evolution of game design. Because I feel like there are so many elements here that are incredibly popular when tweaked and refined in just little different ways in the current crop of well-received independent RPGs. And so for those reasons alone, I suggest people read the like GM advice chapter.
Yes. I want to be clear. It's a very smart book with some really interesting ideas in it, and I loved reading it, and I am going to steal stuff from it. Listeners often ask us, like, how do you have time for this? Or like, should we read these things? And it is worth reading for GM advice, and it's worth reading for borrowing ideas. It's a big, beautiful, messy, it's a passion project, obviously, and I have nothing but respect for Night's Black Agents. I loved this. It's a lot.
Yes. Yes. What if that adventure design was, instead of being 10 steps, 4? Yeah, sure. It would be brilliant for us. But for the people who like it, I'm sure it's brilliant already. But yeah, no, is I think just a fascinating bit of campaign building advice inserted into this gumshoe using Spies versus Vampires system, which, by the way, we didn't even mention, is filled with like 100 pages of advice on like European cities and Euro intelligence agencies and how they function.
If you ever wanted to know about the various structures of
how Turkish intelligence in 2009 was structured, you'll find this here.
It really is. It really is. It's a great book. I don't want to sound like I'm not. It's just so much, And I love that.
I think we can say
I love that.
It's a great book. Maybe it's not a game that's great or great for us.
There is a game in there, is the thing, though. There's a game in there somewhere, and that's the thing that I think makes it frustrating, is like, I can see the vision, we should also admit the game in there is explicitly telling you as the GM, here's all of the work you need to do to make this into a game. And I want you to do that work. And Rob and I are both like, oh, I do not want to do that work. It's like, thank you for telling me what I should do. I'm not going to do that. But like to the book's credit, to Kenneth Hite's credit, gives you the information. Have the tools are there. They're just hard to use.
You have the tools, you have the talent. But the will is lacking for Rob and myself. But if it's not for you, check out Night's Black Agents. And if you have the will, you could also, drop us a line, dmofnone@gmail.com. Or if you want more episodes, including our most recent Patreon one, which is Advice from Baldur's Gate Act 2 and 3, the second half of the Baldur's Gate game, things you could steal from that, or things not to do that those acts do, go to patreon.com/Dungeon Master of None.
And if there's any other weird, beautiful messes that you want us to read, we have no shortage of them to go through, but we're always taking suggestions, so feel free to reach out. As always, thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.